Alright, so now what we're going to do, now that we have set up our HUD so it's visible on the screen, it currently is not moving, it's not dynamic, it's not bound to anything, so it's not registering I picked that up or anything. So now we're going to go ahead and add that functionality. As a quick note, I'm also changing the pickup, the way the code works on that. I'm going to create a different one, so this one here will be differently handled than the others. And we're going to get started right after that. To start with, what we're going to do is go right into coding. We did all the preliminary work as far as the game HUD setup, if you remember this in the previous video. Now, as I promised, all code. So what we're going to do is start with the game mode that we've created. So right here in the game mode, we're going to go ahead and double click that. It'll pop it up for us. Alright, so at this point, we already have the framework that we're going to need to get most of this to work. We can just verify just to make sure. Again, if this isn't in here yet, and depending on if you've not watched the previous videos, and just ended up on this video, we'll just go ahead and make sure that we have it. So in our build file, so we'll go ahead and search for it down here in the list. Right here, the game build. We want to make sure that we have the UMG and Slate and Slate Core. If you do, you can just go ahead and close that out. If not, make sure you put those in before we continue. So we're going to start off in the header file, and we want to make sure to add a couple of things in order to get this all to work. If they're not already added in from a previous video, we're going to add them in now. So as you can see, we've already put in this code. So I'll just take a minute to briefly again describe what it's doing. Let's start up here with the headers. I don't remember putting much in on here. If anything, I might have put this one here in, the Blueprint User Widget. That's going to be an important one to make sure you have. This function here, the change menu widget, we're going to actually make it a U function that's going to be callable, and we will use that in the blueprint editor for our UMG, and you'll see that later on. Essentially what this is going to do is control changing our interface on the screen. It's going to be what we use to switch from the main menu to our HUD, and so on and so forth. And then down here, we're just setting the virtual begin play. So we're going to come down here to the next one. It's going to be a U property, edit anywhere. It's going to be just read only. And essentially, it's just going to be a subclass of the user widget. And it's going to do as implied, it's going to be the starting widget. Which brings us down to the next U property, which is going to keep track of what our current widget is. This will make a little bit more sense when we come over to the CPT file. And what you can see is, here's our change menu widget. And what it's going to do is, well, actually, you know what? Let me just change the order of this so it makes a little bit more sense. Alright, so that being moved, you can see our begin play. What it's going to do is actually call our change menu widget, and it's going to set our starting widget, which in our case is going to be the main menu screen that you see when you first get to the game. And then the actual change menu widget itself, this method, what it's going to do is actually handle the processing of the current widget in the viewport. So essentially what it's going to do, you're going to pass in the new widget class that you want to change to. And as soon as you do that, it's going to come into this first conditional if statement and check to see if the current widget is not null, meaning if you already have an interface of some sort on the screen, it's going to remove it from there, and then set the current widget explicitly to a no pewter. And then it goes into the next if statement, which says kind of the same thing, except for it's looking at the parameter passed in. If the new widget class is not null, meaning if you actually passed it a widget, and then it's going to take the current widget and set it to the new widget that you've passed to it. And then from there, it daisy chains down to another if statement where it's going to take that current widget if it's not null. So if this is successful, it comes into this if statement here, and then at which point it's just going to add it to the viewport. All right, so a little bit fail-safe with the if statements just to make sure everything's working accordingly and gets passed in and created. before it actually continues on and gets stuff done. Alright, with that being said, we are finished going over the game mode. Alright, so now the next thing we're going to do is come back over here to the editor. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is take a look at our player controller. I believe we already created one, and we did, right here. So we'll just open that up. And again, we're just going to make sure that the code from the previous videos, in case you haven't followed along, you can get caught right up to speed. So this here, we're just going to go ahead in the header file, declare a virtual begin play override. And then in the implementation of it, we're going to just set input mode to F input mode game and UI. Okay? So that being said, we can continue now. And that will bring us back up to our actual player character, where we're going to go ahead and give our character some vitals and carrying capacity. So let's close out these previous two. We're not going to need those anymore. Come to our character header file, and we're going to go straight to the protected area. And what we're going to do is add a bunch of spots here. And we're going to start giving our character some vitals. This part will be kind of tedious and maybe a bit boring, but what I'll do is just go over the first few and then kind of time lapse forward a little bit to help speed this along a little bit. Because again, it is going to be a little tedious. All of these are going to be U property. And they're going to be a edit defaults only with a category equal to vitals. So we're going to put it into our vitals category. And this first parameter is going to be what's going to be used to keep track of our character's max health. So a float character max health equals 100. Alright, so what we have is the max health. Now we need to go ahead and get the current health. We're also going to give our character the ability to track stamina. So we're going to go ahead and copy this piece of code a few more times. We're going to change this one to current health. This one will be max stamina. And the last one will be current stamina. Okay, so these are our character vitals. And right now we're going to go ahead and give it what we call a very simplistic inventory. Just a way to track the two different types of pickups. So I kind of feel bad for calling this an inventory because it's really not. And what we're going to do here, is create two more variables. That's going to be a health pickup variable and a stamina pickup variable. So what we're going to do is create this as a U property. It's going to be edit anywhere. And we're going to give it the category of inventory. And to be able to track this, it's just going to be an int variable. And we're going to set that to a 0. We're not going to start off with any of them. We're just going to copy this down. And we'll change health to stamina. Change the little typo there. Okay, so from here we can go down to some public variables. Turn off this extra white space, we don't need it anymore. So we're going to come down to the public section here. Do the same thing, make some space so we can kind of segregate. And we're going to create some setters and getters, to be honest with you. So, okay, so now here in the public section, we're going to create a category section here called inventory management methods. These methods are just going to be used to get or set our inventory. So we're going to create some EU functions. They're going to be two different types. One's going to be a callable and one's going to be a pure. So not quite sure if this is a good spot to explain what they are. Alright, so the general difference between the two is a blueprint callable will have execution nodes to it. A blueprint pure will not. And I'll try to explain that a little bit further once we get into the blueprint side of it to show the difference. Alright, so with that being said, we're going to use function, blueprint callable. Alright, so it's going to be a void add health pickup. And we're going to pass it in a int value. The next thing we're going to do is save some time. We'll copy that over. And instead of blueprint callable, we're going to do a blueprint pure. And this one here is going to be a getter, so it's going to actually return an int value. We'll change this to a get health pickup. And we'll add the prefix of count. We don't need to pass in any parameters here, and that is that. Now that we have the general foundation for both of those, we can actually copy them. And we're just going to paste them over so we can go ahead and just change the stamina. What we're going to do is change health in this one to stamina. And we're just going to stop here real quick, and we're going to go ahead and do the definitions for these. I'm going to define these really simply. It's not going to take much time at all, but I figured it'd be better to do this now and build it versus continuing on and trying to build and debug if in case I messed up something and end up with a whole daisy chain of errors. So right click, create definition. And we're going to go ahead and just use this right here because it's going to be nice, quick, and like I said, all these are going to be pretty simple. If you forgot what it is, you can just come right up here. The variables was health pickups and stamina pickups, so we're going to keep using those. Pretty simple context, as you can see, just health pickups. We're going to add 2 health pickups, whatever the value is. Whether it's positive or negative, it's just going to add it and set that. With this one, all we're going to do is actually return health pickups. And that one is done. Just rinse and repeat with this one. So with that done, we're going to compile and save to make sure those are all done without errors. Should be, nothing too complicated, so patiently waiting. Okay, so that went without a hitch. So we're just going to go ahead and start on the vitals, all the different methods that we're going to use for this. Again, we're going to use the same kind of pattern. Alright, so in the vitals methods, what we're going to do is actually scale this like you would in a real game. Admittedly, we're only going to officially in this video use the get percentage, get current percent on each of the health and the stamina, and we're going to also potentially squeeze in the set, so we can go ahead and add health or stamina to our character. Let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do is create all the gets first, and then we'll go into the sets.
I decided to fast forward through this, so should you need to stop the video and take a look at the code, you can. Otherwise, I think it's pretty basic coding, and to save time, we're just gonna speed on by it. All right, I'm going to call that a win. One small uppercase to lowercase issue there. Otherwise, all the code compiled and works. At this point, though, I'm at the 18-minute mark, and I think this is a good spot to stop. This code also is more of the basic level coding for C++ in general, so it may not be for everybody. And if you weren't and you made it to this spot before fast forwarding to the next video, then thank you. I hope you got something from it. If not, if you saw something I can improve on, I'm always willing to learn more. However, if you are new, hopefully you could pause the video in certain spots and get some information and learn a little bit more. We're going to move on to the next video from here and cover a little bit more of the details of binding everything together. So thank you again for watching, and I hope this helps somebody. If it just helps one person, it was worth my time. Thank you, and see you soon.